Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We are back again with a day in the life of a CISO or a security leader. And today we have Sashank Dara with us. He's a PhD and a seasoned cybersecurity technologist and expert. He has over 18 years of experience in cybersecurity R&D. He got his PhD in cybersecurity from IIIT Bangalore in applied cryptography and threat intelligence. He is the co-inventor of 5 US patents and 3 IETF drafts in the areas of cloud, SDN, and NFV security. He is currently the CTO and co-founder of Second Eyes, an award-winning cybersecurity startup pioneering a cyber risk and compliance management. Now, before I head to the questions, Sashank, thank you so much for joining me today.
Welcome. Yeah.
Sashank, this is the brief introduction that I gave, but we want to know more from you that what you do on day-to-day basis when we talk about cybersecurity.
Okay. Thank you, Vandana, for having me on this interview of sort, right? So before we get into this exciting discussion on a day in life of a CISO, I'd like to give a brief background of where I'm coming from to share my experiences, right? So I have an interesting background here in terms of observing closely the CISO, right? I'm on both sides of the table. At times, we are building technology to help CISOs, okay, to simplify their life in terms of risk and compliance management. On the other side, I also wear a hat of a virtual CISO for many of our customers as well. So I get to play the role of both sides. So I can give different perspectives, I believe.
Interesting. So what is this virtual CISO role look like? Because I have had conversations with a few people who are actually doing this full time. But I want to understand from you, how are you playing this virtual CISO role?
Yeah, glad that you asked, right? Virtual CISO is a CISO role. There's nothing virtual about that. It's just that sometimes it's so difficult to hire seasoned security leaders. So people adopt these services from companies like ours, where they want us to help them out on all aspects of cybersecurity in order to ensure that they have these safe business practices and they are not in use for wrong reasons, right? So we step up and then we work with them, understand what their business risks are and help them align their strategic and tactical security practices. So that's, in short, a virtual CISO role. But for all practical purposes, it's a CISO role when we are playing that with them.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So do you work with them on the strategies that they have or that they want to build for their organizations? Or do you advise them on and off basis when they need any help, maybe during an incident or maybe while they're setting up something new?
So it is both, I would say. It is both strategic and tactical that we get involved. So we have the cybersecurity maturity engagement, so to call. So we get them from ground zero to the level of where highest security practices are being practiced. So we are there at the whole journey throughout.
Yeah, interesting, very interesting. So if you are allowed to make a change in any of the organization, what would it be to make sure that everyone can relate to security? Because security is something which actually is a showstopper at every place or a roadblocker at every place. But when it comes to the security leaders, they have to take a step up or they have to take a chance wherein people understand security well and the kind of incidents that are happening because of human misses, they shouldn't happen. So how do you handle that? Or if you are allowed to make one change?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think one change will be very subjective, okay? But I'll tell you what my thought process is. I would like to see opportunities where security is a business enabler than a speed breaker, right? I can give you ample examples here how we can make it a security is a business enabler than its speed breaker, right? So as a security leader, we should not constrain the businesses from working with third parties. Just as an example, right? So we need vendors to probably build our applications, build websites, or run our infrastructure. But as a security leader, I should not put a gate saying that, hey, that is scary, let's hide. right? That may not be a business enabler at all, right? So in those situations, probably we come ahead and say, we enable you, you're free to do business with third-party vendors and services. This is just one vendor risk management aspect I'm talking about. You are free to enable, but provided these practices are followed, these safety measures are being followed, right? So that is where you are safely enabling the business to do onboard vendors at the same time, ensure security practices. That's just one example. The same could be for your development teams. You can't say, hey, I don't let you ship this product because of some feature is not existing, that's not safe. But whereas work with them to understand, hey, these are the security practices, align them so that you can have much thriving business on your e-commerce web application, for example, right? Yeah.
Now, while you talk about the relationship between DevOps and not enforcing security on them, how do you handle the relationship with different teams, especially Dev and Ops, which have different business teams as well?
Yeah. So the CISO role, right? It's an extremely skillful leadership role where you need to have business skills, social skills, communication skills, right? So all these three are important to understand the business risks and translate them to the teams. That's very, very important aspect. Now, if a CISO is a deeply technical person alone without these other skills, it's a recipe for failure, in my opinion, right? So as a CISOs, they need to build this social capital with their peers, with their teams, so that they can influence their decisions in a way that is good for the business, right? So whether it is DevOps, ensuring that the secure DevOps operation metrics and measures are in place, whether it is working with the vendors, whether it is whatever, running the infrastructure, right? So all these things needs a social capital so that you can influence your peers, teams that don't report to you directly as well. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's interesting. Now, for a new CISO, there are a lot of steps that they need to take.
Yeah.
Like they have to have a strategy for the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and then they have to understand the organization, people, business units. So how do you balance it out? And when you started as a CISO, did you plan any sort of strategy that this is what you're going to be doing in the organization in your first 90 days, or did you plan for the coming year? So that's what I wanted to understand.
Good. So when we help our customers through our virtual CISO services, right? So as you rightly said, we kind of break it down. But the most important, the first 30 days, or sometimes you won't even get these 30 days to understand what the aspects I'm going to cover. But the top aspects that we would like to understand is, what is the business? What are the revenue sources? What is likely to get derailed on an unforeseen day? Which, paraphrasing, the risk, right? So without understanding these three elements, what is the nature of the business? What are the revenue sources and different business units that are generating revenue? Assuming this is for a for-profit organization, right? And what are the business risks to it? That is very important for us to understand it on the first 1 week-ish, right? Or even before even joining, probably before even on Rapid, right? Then it is very, very important to understand your horizon. Your horizon, not only on the technology landscape, but also on the people landscape, whether it is north to south, that is understanding your leadership and understanding your team, or is it east to west, understanding your peers and understanding what their roles and responsibilities are. So this is where the opportunity to build the social capital happens. Without that, we'll not be able to successfully ensure the business risks are mitigated. Right? So then comes the projects and gaps, and the next comes. So if I may answer your other part of the question, say what is the next 60 days, right? So once you build this, understand the business context, understand the people, understand the landscape currently, then the 60 days comes on what are the gaps? How can we help the organizations to succeed? Whether it is teams building this product in a secure way, whether it is the sales team trying to reach out to the customers in a much safer way, right? So whether it is the applications that are generating revenue. So these are the next 60 days in order to identify the gaps, understand the current security practices, and plan strategically and tactically how do we mitigate them as we go. And the 90 days would be 90 days and beyond would be the execution, the long-term planning. And because the threat landscape is ever evolving, you need to be always on the toes to understand what are the new threats out there and how do we have measures and practices in place so that we can mitigate it on a long term as well. So that would be the 30, 60, 90 kind of a plan.
Yeah. And when you are building that, I am sure you have something unique, some unique strategy that you have when you're dealing with any of your partners, the companies that you're working with. So what is that unique thing which you feel is a differentiator for you?
So as I said, it is always the business acumen to speak. So people may get it wrong. So you are CISO, you are an IT person, or you're the tech geek kind of a person, but no. So we are not here for the sake of security, right? We need to enable the business. So the unique quality or the unique value proposition that we bring to the table is always to understand the business enablement and how do we mitigate those risks.
Right. And now while you mitigate those risks, you need to have some budget for tools, technologies, and people. So how do you convince board for that?
Good. Very, very, very good question. First, I'll try to break this question into two parts, right? The board, handling the board part, and then the budget part. Right? So let's take a few steps back and understand what exactly is the board looking for. Okay. And then we can see what is needed to get there. Right. So boards are looking for assurances. Again, not false assurances, but assurances that are backed based on data and metrics on the business risks. Okay. So we are running this business. The boards are responsible for that. What can possibly derail that business? And cyber is one big aspect in the horizon of in the spectrum of enterprise risk management. Now, what can possibly derail, and what is that? Are we doing enough? Are we doing enough to ensure that the risk is under acceptable levels? Right. So that is what boards are looking at. So often, at times, CISOs struggle to articulate whether the boards are getting the data that we have, because reporting to the board itself is a broad topic. There's a lot of debate and discussion and research going on what exactly boards are looking for and what to report it, right? So once the seasoned CISO who can articulate the technology risks, translate them into business risks with proper data and metrics, and help the boards understand, not the tech jargon, but help the boards understand that, hey, this is the likely risk. Now, let me de-jargonize a bit. What is that risk itself, right? So boards are likely to understand is, in a very simple terms, are we going to be in the news for wrong reasons, right? That might impact their reputation, that might impact their profitability, that might impact their customers, that might impact the services that they're offering, right? So these are the ones that they're looking for. But whereas as the CISOs and the tech folks, we might get the metrics which are very technical in nature. It could be incidents that we are resolving, the vulnerabilities that we have, or the patch management solution that we need to build. So it is good, but that's not enough. That's not what boards understand, right? So if we can articulate in the language that the boards understand, saying that, hey, this is the data in order to address a potential loss of customer data. Here is the data to address potential loss of reputation. Saying, whatever, the security mitigation program to upgrade all our firewalls are needed to avoid a disruption of our services, right? That's the translation, right? And well and good if we could even translate that into a dollar value and say, likely that there is 100 million revenue loss we might hit if we can't onboard this or kickstart this 1 million upgrade of firewalls or whatever, right? So that's the language that they understand. So as a CISO's risk management is the numero one aspect, which we need to do a thorough assessment of it in order to make the boards understand where we stand, and then comes the topic of budget. In order to get there, like now that we have painted a picture that, hey, this is my estimated losses if I don't do this, and within 6 months we will get there. And when we say we get there, this is what I need to get there. That is what they will understand. And this comes out of the immense experience that we have dealing with a lot of different customers and helping them to address their board meetings. We can say that the language that the boards understand is the potential risks, not necessarily the technical details of doing penetration testing or doing upgrading a firewall or moving to cloud and things like that. So those are the second order information or the third order information. The first order is always, what are the risks? What are we doing for it? That's it. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, while you're dealing with the board and getting the budget and speaking about that, how much of a culture do you think is important in any organization?
Very good question, right? So culture itself is a mystic topic, right? Is sending emails and posters and putting the banners the culture, or showing the leadership in showing the way by doing certain things is the culture, right? So having the security culture measures and awareness trainings, nothing wrong in it, we should do, but culture is something beyond that, right? Something beyond that in the sense like doing and showing. Right? I'll tell you a very, very simple example of setting the right example when it comes to setting good culture. A leader should not blame if somebody is sharing a password over email. Say, hey, this is a bad practice. No, we should not victimize the users. A leader should say, hey, this is the better users, a better practice. Use a password manager and share it, right? So you see the difference, right? Rather than blaming a victim saying that, hey, you are doing a bad thing, versus showing up that saying that, hey, you need to use there's a better way, there's a good way. That's the leadership skill, right? Only when you take that responsibility and show the way in the right direction rather than blaming the victims, we are not going to address this culture problem, right? So it's always is top driven. It is always top driven when it comes to setting the right practices on the security aspects.
Agree with you on that it is important to have the right set of practices. Then only we can flourish. We can have best of people, process, technology, but if we don't have it, bind it together with the right culture, we can't flourish.
Yeah.
So before we conclude, any parting words that you want to share?
So it all starts with, my sincere request for all the security folks out there is that please do not practice security for the sake of security. Okay, see how you can be part of success of your organizational business by enabling them doing the business in a secure way rather than being a speed breaker again. Right? That would be my only statement there.
Yeah, thank you. That is very relevant. Thank you so much, Sashank, for joining me today and sharing wonderful insights.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity as well.
Yeah, thank you.